Hey everybody, before I get started, I just want to mention a couple of ways that you can engage with me on a more personal level. I have a few avenues set up and I keep focusing on one, and I figured why don't I make a short little video talking about all of them real quick before we get into these episodes. So first thing, Patreon. There's a link in the episode description, in every episode description to the Patreon, as well as a video on the feed called Major Announcement that has all the details of what each tier offers and how much they cost. I implore you to check that out. I offer a lot of cool shit for my patrons. Second thing, the Discord channel. There's also a Discord link in the episode description and in every episode description. I have multiple channels set up there for each show that I'm covering, and it's a great way to just engage with me. I have a channel set up for MMA talk as well. I'm a big MMA fan, so if you're an MMA fan, you can check that out as well. There's a link to the Discord in the episode description. And then lastly, the Facebook and Twitter. Social media. Follow me on there. I post news on there. When I say news, I mean like, hey, I'm stopping covering this show. Hey, I'm starting covering this show. Let me know what you think about this. I do live watches of things on Facebook where like I'll check in and say I'm watching so-and-so show, and then I'll like live comment while I'm watching it, and that'll be cool if maybe you watch that show too and you want to watch along with me, or you're watching it later and you will see my thoughts, which are usually pretty entertaining because I'm usually pretty high when I'm writing them. So check out all those links in each episode description, and let's talk about this episode. Peace.
One mic, one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic. One mic. One mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, and today I'm here to talk about Season 1, Episode 3 of Apple TV's Silo, entitled Machines. This episode title is centered around Juliet's love for machines, which we see on display here in this episode, and most importantly, in this absolutely riveting generator sequence that happens in this episode. I thoroughly enjoyed this episode. We got some more world building, which I found to be super compelling, and the generator sequence, exhilarating. I'm really glad to see this show prove early on that it can pump out some pretty post-pounding action sequences on top of what's already a super compelling narrative. And then we also got answers as well to some of the questions that we had from previous episodes, along with the raising of some new questions that I'm excited to get answered as well. So yeah, I'm having a really good experience watching this show, but I want to start with the generator sequence, actually. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was like the scope of it, like with everything being so big and cavernous and large and heavy and metal. Everything, like it did a great job of conveying just the stakes and the sense of danger of like any kind of fuck up is going to have massive consequences when you're dealing with big giant things of metal that weigh tons, panels and shit like that, and these blades. But then you also have the added drama of, if this doesn't work, 10,000 people are going to be trapped in this big-ass tube in the dark. So it all just worked really well, I think, to get me to understand and the audience to understand the stakes, but and just get us sufficiently nervous as fuck. I also felt like they even did enough work to make me buy Cooper as someone who could help her, as in like he has the ability, but would also likely fuck up due to her unwillingness to let him help her when the stakes were significantly lower. They've shown us that that she keeps him at arm's length, and that she doesn't really let anyone else inside the generator. I mean, you saw what happened to him in this episode. And he even remarks that he learned faster if he could be a little bit more hands-on. So we already know coming into the generator scene that his confidence is shaky. So when he's up there with her and he's looking nervous, she's looking concerned, they're super high up, everything looks so dangerous, stakes are high as fuck, you can just really, really feel the tension. And then, as if fixing the blade wasn't tense enough, they added in the situation with the steam needing to be released, the small window of time in which Juliet had to even do the repair in the first place, her going down there, having to spray the steam area with water. It was just some really post-pounding stuff, and I thought they really nailed the tension of that scene, and that they did everything they needed to do to make a scene that is more or less just like, hey, they're gonna go fix a generator, and it's like, okay, well that doesn't sound great, and it ends up being exciting as fuck. So I was really impressed by that scene, or sequence of scenes. Uh, let's talk about what else we learned this week. And for starters, I learned that it wasn't going to be long in my coverage of this show before I was wrong about something. Apparently, Juliet does in fact have the arm and upper body strength to pull herself back up that rope from being suspended above the water. I guess that didn't end up being the conundrum that I thought it was going to be. But then again, I'm sure the show wanted us to think it was going to be a conundrum. And then they're just like, yeah, just have her climb back up. So the mayor, Mayor Ruth, is about to begin her quest to meet Juliet. We heard last episode that she wanted to meet her, and they were like, oh, we can send her up. She's like, no, I'm going down there. Of course, Marnes is going to be tagging along. And this is when I learned another piece of information about this world. Apparently, the silo doesn't have elevators. Like, she's taking the stairs down all 140 flights to the mechanics level to meet Juliet. And, so as a non-book reader, I don't know this information, but if they have to walk down all those stairs to get to Juliet's level, do they not, in fact, also have to walk back up? Because I'm 100% certain that's a walk that neither of them's going to survive. I'm way younger than them. I'm not going to survive that unless the trip back up is spread out over, several days. Or do they not need to walk down, and the silo does have elevators? They're just doing it out of choice because the mayor felt like she needed to get her face out there, see people. And, one of those things was like a campaign tour. Like, okay, I'm going to hit these different cities and shit. I'm going to hit the mids, hit the mechanics. Like she just showing face. It could be either one of those things. I kind of assumed they didn't have an elevator, but it might not have been that. So, but at the same time, they make it a point to show us the porters like running around and shit like that. I haven't seen any elevators. I don't know. But speaking of when the mayor was walking down the stairs, she makes this pit stop in front of Judicial to have a sip of water. And speaking of Judicial, I have if I don't have to, but if I had to make one complaint about the show so far. And I don't want to say I'm forcing this because I'm not forcing it. It is something that I didn't particularly enjoy in this episode, but I also will readily admit it is very fucking nitpicky. I'd like to know a little bit more about what certain characters' roles are. I don't necessarily have to know about the person just yet, but okay, so for instance, Mayor Ruth and Marnes, they stop for, like I said, the water break in front of Judicial. And Ruth says it'll get back to Judge Meadows that she was there and she didn't come in. And it does. Her and Marge meet with Bernard, who is played by Tim Robbins, and I just can't figure out for the life of me who the fuck he is. Like Ruth asked him, like, hey, can you, I'm gonna need you to holler at Judge Meadows for me, like put a good word in her regarding, this choosing of a new sheriff. And then she also asked him, like, hey, what can you tell me about Juliet? These are two entirely different fields of information that apparently he has. Like, so what does he do? Like, why does he have both influence with Judicial and can recall information about Juliet stealing tape off the top of his head? Like, what is this guy's fucking job? So, like, I understand and acknowledge that is nitpicky, but I am curious. Like, you don't have, like I said, I don't have to know shit about Bernard, but I would like to know, like, okay, is he, I don't know, fucking Secretary of State and Secretary of Silo? I don't fucking know, but what is his job, right? Another smaller example is Common's character. Like, I know he works for Judicial, but in what capacity? Like, what is his role? Is he an enforcer? Is he a fixer? Is he security? Like, when he brings Ruth the strawberry dessert, that seemed at first like something he was doing in like an official capacity. But then it kind of like when he started to make this case for the Billings guy for sheriff, it started to sound a lot more personal. And I'm like, so is he doing this on his own time? Like, it's just something he wants to do and not something he's doing because it's his job? So, like, I feel like I'd have a better answer to that if I knew exactly what his duties were. So it's like, I know I'll gain a clear understanding moving forward, but it wouldn't be terribly difficult to have given me that information so that Bernard's abilities, and when I say abilities, I don't mean like a superhero, but like ability to like move throughout this world, like what he can do, what power he has, what that would make more sense to me. Like, for example, I know Marnes is a sheriff because he wears a sheriff uniform. I don't know shit about the guy in season 1, episode 1, when I first see him, I don't know shit about him, but I know he's fucking law enforcement because he has a law enforcement thing on. So, like, maybe they show us Bernard with, like, a nameplate that says fucking Secretary of Silo Bernard. And I'm like, okay, he's the Secretary of Silo. You know, something like that. You know, and again, like I said, nitpicky, I understand, but, I don't know, it just kind of irked me that I didn't understand who Bernard was and what his role was, but he seemed to have a lot of power and in various areas of I don't know, silo affairs. anyway, the main focus of the episode is, of course, the generator breaking down. We've seen already that whenever like shit starts shaking, that Juliet has to crawl into that hatch and do her little fix that gets the generator to calm down. Well, in this episode, the fix isn't working as well, and Juliet comes to the realization the only option is to actually fully shut down the generator, which would temporarily cease all power in the silo, so that she could fully fix the generator for real rather than just patching it up. Everyone's hesitant because this has never been done before, but Juliet says not doing it presents the far worse possibility of having a rotor break and the silo losing power permanently. So those are some pretty big fucking stakes. We also learn that the mayor's relationship with the people, as well as the class structure within the silo. You know, I talked about her wanting to, you know, show her face around. We see that in this episode. She goes down to the creatively named mids, which I can only assume is around the middle of the silo, and it contains the middle class. Just because, I mean, the name, I mean, it's a very informative name. She has a great rapport with these people. They seem to love her. She's really good at working the crowd, man. She wants to see the babies. I'm like, oh, she's doing a whole president walk, like shaking hands and kissing babies. But no, she actually did have an ulterior motive for wanting to see the babies. The doctor, and side note, this is a question that I'm going to ask. Actually, if you're a book reader and you have the answer, I don't consider this to be a spoiler. So if you say it and I read it in the comments, I'm not going to be pissed or anything like that. I wonder if this is another piece of world building. Like, is he the only doctor who delivers babies in the silo? Because, like, with how strictly they regulate relationships and procreating and pregnancies, I'd imagine it's a possibility that he is. Like, they're like, okay, like, we only allow 4 pregnancies a month, so that all 4 of them gonna be born at the same time. But obviously, if there's only 4 people pregnant at the same time, he's gonna have a lot of downtime. But you get what I'm saying, right? They can have it to where they regulate the pregnancy so tightly that they know, okay, we're gonna have likely 3 babies born every day, or something like that. I just, again, piece of world building that I'm curious about. But I got so far off talking about the doctor. So the doctor, who's played by Ian Glenn, aka Jorah Mormont, they're going to see him because he's actually Juliet's father. This is when we learned that she had an early interest in machines and that she was actually sent down to mechanical because it was what she wanted, which is actually another piece of world building. We learned that apparently you could do that. You could be like, all right, so you want to fix shit for a living? You can start at 13, get the fuck out, and I won't see you again. Because I can't afford to go visit you on my off day. I'm going to send you off at 13, and that's it. Like I said, like I jokingly alluded to, he hasn't seen her much since. He says he only gets 1 day off, and we see from the mayor's trek down the stairs that this is no quick, you can't pop in and pop out. He's not taking a car there. It's a long journey. He can't afford his 1 day off. He needs it for rest. He can't afford to be traveling down to mechanical. Makes me wonder what Juliet can do with her day off. If she has a day off, I don't know. Maybe she could come up and see him. She's a lot younger. I don't know, but going up is probably a lot harder than going down. Anyway, let's talk about Martha. So Martha is the older lady that Juliet confided in, who was in that workshop last episode. Juliet meets with her again in this episode, and we learn a few things of interest. So we learned that Martha more or less hasn't left that workshop in 20 years, and that she listens to that radio, which apparently lets her know what's going on in the silo. Apparently the radio is contraband, which we learn when Ruth visits her. She jokingly tells Ruth it's a toaster, and this is when we learned that Martha and Ruth used to be pals, maybe even more than that, who knows? Martha, we learned that Martha was gay, like it's something you could turn off, is gay, and that she used to be married. She used to have a wife, but something happened to the wife, but maybe her and Ruth used to be friends, which feels a lot less relevant by the end of the episode, but it felt very relevant at the time. Like, okay, she used to be friends with the mayor, and now she's confined herself to this workshop for 20 years? Like, what's the story behind that? And if I'm maybe that's still an interesting story, and we're gonna get that story and that answer, and it's gonna be really interesting later. But like with given how the episode ends, I kind of don't care anymore. But we'll see. So the mayor finally makes it down to mechanical in the middle of Juliet's fix malfunctioning, and she tells Juliet of Holston's wishes for her to replace him. She refuses until she discovers something etched in the back of Holston's badge. She then says she'll take the job if she can fix the generator. The deal is made. We've already talked about the generator scene, and as the episode ends, we learn that Holston had etched the word truth into the back of the badge, which was a clue to Juliet that he had found something surrounding George. We also learned that Ruth and Marnes had a thing for each other, and that she planned to retire to be with him, but she seems flustered as she runs into the bathroom, and she's dead moments later, and that closing shot was pretty fucking gruesome. Like, the way her mouth was looking, that was crazy, but at least she appears to be dead. I don't know how you could look like that and be her age and live, but hey, whatever, right? But all signs point to suicide here, and with everything seemingly okay, we have to wonder what would prompt her to do that, if that is in fact what's happened. Is there a clue that maybe I missed in the episode? Like, if I watch it again, I'm see her get some sort of information that's going to make her change her viewpoint. You know, where I could be like, maybe that person handed her something right there, and that could be it. Or maybe like a change in her demeanor to where, like, when we saw her telling Marnes that she was going to retire, she seemed happy. Why would you then kill yourself? Like, is there a moment where I can see a change in demeanor? I don't know. But we got some world building. We got some answers. Some more super compelling mysteries. And a terrifying set of scenes of someone fixing a generator. Lots of great stuff packed into one episode. Again, I'm absolutely loving this show. Can't wait for episode 4. I will see you guys next Friday for that. And until then, peace.